Peter, for being here.
My pleasure. That's the easy part.
Yes.
Answering the questions will be the tougher part.
Well, it is wonderful to have you on the board and to give us really good advice and your own experience working with performance, and in particular high-performance athletes, because you're certainly a well-known sports psychologist, which I always find intriguing, to imagine how you're able to work with people to get them so inspired, both emotionally and then actually with the physical performance to be successful. Now, you've also written an interesting book, Igniting the Third Factor. And that, again, is about inspiring athletes and high performance and all the theory behind that. So, you know, in 2 words or less, what is the third factor?
You know, you made reference to about athletes, but actually the third factor grows out of my work with Kazimir Dombrowski. And, I mean, there's nature and there's nurture, but there's also the third factor, and that's what he called it. There's no other name for it. People keep saying, what's the third factor? He actually called it the third factor with tremendous simplicity and accuracy. And the third factor is the role that the person plays in their own growth and development, beyond what nature has given you and the way you were raised. In terms of reaching potential, emotion and imagination are the two key. And emotion in the sense that often it's not until you're totally dissatisfied with something or upset with it that you move to what ought to be. You move away from what is to what ought to be, or away from what is less like me, or I want to be less like me, towards what I'd like to be more like me. And so emotion is very much a push, where imagination is very much a pull. You know, it's a beginning to see what's possible. You know, it isn't until you see some other alternative sometimes that you can make the move.
Sure.
Because it's incredibly, well, I was going to say incredibly hard, but it's actually impossible to do things you can't imagine.
Right.
And so imagery is very much the language of performance. And a realization is just that, like something becomes real for you.
Right.
And in an instant, you go, oh, I can see this now. When I work with the athletes, one of the things I try to get them to realize about emotion is that when you are upset about something, so to take a negative emotion first,
sure,
it just simply means that you are dissatisfied with the current level of performance, what's happening. And that, you know, you find this level of performance unacceptable. You aren't unacceptable, but the performance is. And beneath every emotion is the energy to transform it.
You know, it's interesting, though, in healthcare, with how you've described this whole phenomena of real change and progress and doing things better. Really, in healthcare, we never talk about, well, how are you dealing with the emotional element? How are you dealing with the imagination of what we need to do? And when we talk about change, it becomes very kind of rudimentary of what structures do we need, and those types of things that don't kind of ignite, to use the phrase, really ignite the emotions. And some of the things we've done at St. Eliz that, you know, within probably healthcare, people go, well, what are these people thinking, is related to trying to get that sort of drive to change something, and to actually start to imagine, to have ideas, to imagine what the future looks like in healthcare. And that's a hard thing to do. You know, typically we work with, how do we change to move into a new structure? And there's no emotion there. It's just all sort of, okay, step by step. And how do you think we can begin to incorporate some of these concepts into leadership at all levels in healthcare to get to the type of really both individual performance that an athlete has? How can we translate that to individual health clinicians, maximizing their potential, in addition, the whole system maximizing its potential?
Do you not have a tougher question?
No.
Oh my goodness, how do we save the world? Okay,
come on now.
Well, let me back up. I'm going to go all the way back to third factor.
We need the Olympics in healthcare.
Well, I'm going to go back to third factor for a minute.
Okay.
And so let me speak as a cancer patient, because I was a cancer patient just a year ago. And so what does one do? Well, first of all, in coaching, what do? You align yourself with what's possible in this other person. You see, the target for me as a leader in you is your third factor. My desire to have you increase your commitment to be the very best Shirley that you can be.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And so I'm not going to align myself with your fear or your doubts or your worries or your concerns. That's your personality coming out.
Right.
That has to do with your concern around whatever this performance requires of you. I want to align myself with the part of you that thinks it's possible, even if that part is very small.
And we talk about these phrases, there needs to be a culture change. I think it's even more than that. It's almost we have to get real.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and getting real, that's a really good phrase. We've got to stop sounding like marketing people.
Yeah.
You know, when we communicate, we've got to stop saying things, you know, Nike came up with just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great for marketing. But if you're going to coach someone to just do it, you got to now take just do it and break it down into the 300 behaviors that indicate you're just doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the same thing is true here. We got to stop saying we got to change the system or we got to do this or we got to that, and say, no, what would I see and hear you doing if you were doing that?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd be a better listener. Oh, what would I see and hear you doing if you were being a better listener? You just keep boiling it down. And until you get to verbs, you don't have actions.
I think from a leadership point of view, you know, the competency to actually help people improve and to work through the detail and the tasks
Yes.
of, you know, sometimes we just say communicate, communicate, communicate,
Yeah.
that's it. Well, what are the steps to communicate?
Because the level of performance is so high, we have to move beyond supervising and managing. We have to move to developing. And there's a lot of reasons for this. You know, Linda Druxbury at Carleton University points out that for every 2 people who retire in the next 15 years, there's less than 1 available to replace them. So we've got to start growing our own talent. And that starts with the leaders having exceptional communication skills.
Yeah.
You know, the great thing about communication skills is that when you possess them, like if you can ask exceptional questions and you know how to active listen and you know how to give competent, relevant feedback and you're able to handle the resistance that you're going to get from this other person when you have a change you want them to make,
Right.
often called confronting.
Yes.
If you can do those things, you can do anything. You can do anything.
Yeah.
And this ability to communicate effectively with people around their performance is critical. And so, for example, in giving competent, relevant feedback, we are so used to telling people what we think.
Yes.
It's our natural tendency is to say, oh, they're rude, or they're inconsiderate, or they're not doing this and they're not doing that, as opposed to telling them what you see, how you feel, and what you heard, in whatever order. Mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. And so you interrupted Karen 3 times in the meeting during your prepared statement. I felt a little frustrated by it. That's good feedback, as opposed to you were rude in the meeting, or you're always interrupting, or you're not being a team player. Mm-hmm. None of that takes performance anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
But you're right. That way you say to yourself, I'm not going to interrupt 3 times again.
Yes. And
rather than personally feeling attacked that you told me I was rude.
Oh, and
Yeah.
if imagery is the language of performance, I'm not telling you not to interrupt. I'm telling you to let other people finish before you talk. You always paint a picture of what you want, not what you don't
Yes.
want.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like going grocery shopping. You know, you don't go out with a list that says don't buy roast beef, don't buy peas, don't buy corn. You go in looking for what you want, not what you don't want.
Yes,
Well, the
yes.
same thing is true here.
Yeah. So, sort of last comments. What can you share with me that's going to help all of us as health leaders who are absolutely committed to try to do the right things and make the changes for the future of a healthcare system that is sustainable? What's sort of, you know, and I know that's a hard question because people
No, it's
say,
an
what's
easy
the
question.
one?
It's a really easy
What
question.
what's the thing? Yeah?
It is.
Great, okay.
Because I think, you know, it's take care of yourself, take care of each other, as I said earlier. Like you got to start with yourself.
Yeah.
And if you're not taking care of yourself, first of all, you're not walking the talk. You know,
Very true.
Stephen Covey once said you can't talk yourself out of something you behave yourself into. And so it's really important
really not
that
gonna eat
we be what we're supposed to be. Because your behavior is way more important than what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah.
You know? And so my thing is each person has to start to take care of themselves. And then remember the strength of a group.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I was at a wedding one time and I was fortunate enough to be sitting beside a friend of mine who spoke Chinese, and it was a Chinese wedding. And the grandfather got up and he walked around the room and he would talk about each couple. He'd stop in front of you and he'd say, now Shirley's in healthcare, and he'd take one of your chopsticks and he went around and he picked, and so-and-so's a financial advisor, and he got up to the front of the room and he took one chopstick from in front of the bride, his granddaughter, And he says, if you try to go through life by yourself, never needing anybody else, and he snapped the chopstick, this is what happened. But he said, taking your second chopstick and putting the Shirley chopstick around it and the Fred chopstick and the, you know, all the others. And now he had a bundle and he couldn't break them. And that was his point, you know, that the strength that comes from support seeking, you know.
Well, thank you so much, Peter. This has been igniting.
All right.
This has been entertaining. I've really enjoyed it very much.
Thanks, Shirley.